Hi everyone, it's Jessica. Today is April 9th, 2015, and this is VEDA Day 9. At about 6:45 tonight, I realized I hadn't come up with a topic for my video for the day, and so I put it out to the Twitter community and said, what should I talk about? Ask me some questions that I could answer. I've gotten a few responses, and I'd love to get a few more questions that I can answer in a video later on this weekend, but as I was on Twitter, I noticed my home feed started scrolling by pretty quickly, and that's because it was almost 7 p.m. on Thursday night. So statistically speaking, between 6 and 8 p.m. are the most popular times on Twitter. And one of the things that I notice is that because I follow mostly educators, it's a very busy time for educational Twitter chats. So throughout the week, there are any number of different topics that you can discuss with other educators in different communities. And there are constantly new chats being added. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll just go through and see which chats my followers are doing tonight, pull up some of the questions from those chats, and then as quickly as I can, try to answer them. So I wanted to just sort of showcase and demonstrate how many different things there are and the different perspectives that there are represented within those chats. So here we go. The first chat question that I'll answer is from PT Chat. It's the parent-teacher chat, and they actually are partnered with the Institute for Educational Leadership, and they do some really great work around parent and family involvement in education and really connecting what does it mean to have a good relationship with parents and teachers and the whole school community. And tonight, question 2 was, what does empowering families look like? I think that the biggest, most important thing that you can do to empower families, as well as to help students succeed, is to build a really good relationship with their families. Even if you can, before school starts, give a phone call to the families, or in the first 2 weeks, every night pick 2 or 3 or 4 kiddos who you can call home and talk to the parents before you have any issues arise at school, before anything else comes up. Just give them a call and say, what is it that you hope for your student this year, and what are some of the things you're nervous about as they go into this new grade level, and what would you like me to know about your child? And just start building that relationship, opening the lines of communication. I think the more you can do that, and you can really build some fantastic partnerships and be one team who's in support of the student, the better off everyone is going to be. And I think that that's really, really important part of empowering families. So that's how I would answer that. The next question is from T-Book C. This is the Teacher Book Club, and they choose a different book, and they read different chapters and discuss them just like a book club would, but that discussion happens on Twitter. The book that they're reading right now is What Connected Educators Do Differently. And so the question that was asked for question 2 was talking about, what is your definition of what it means to be a connected educator? I think that people often think that being a connected educator means a lot of different things, and I think different people define it in various ways, but a lot of times I notice that people have this definition of a connected educator that is only focused on the platform that they personally find valuable. So if you have a person who thinks that Twitter is just, the bee's knees, and it's the place that everyone should be, and this is where I get all my professional learning, and it's so wonderful, and they're just all about Twitter, they tend to think that a connected educator is someone who's on Twitter. You might have a teacher who thinks that Google Plus is really the place to be, and they think, gosh, if you're not on Google Plus, you're not a connected educator. I think that it's important that we kind of connect all of the pieces, and we really take into consideration that there are a lot of different ways to be a connected educator. You can be a connected educator and not have a Twitter account and really not even use social media. I know that that's a little bit controversial, and it's not necessarily the view that I recommend. I really try to get people connected in other ways using the online platforms that are available to them, because I think that opens up a whole world of possibilities. But I do think that part of being a connected educator also means knowing how to foster and sustain really great face-to-face relationships. And that might be when you go to a conference, that you're connecting with people who you have met online, and then you're continuing to build that relationship so it can be sustained and it can flourish. But I also think being connected to the people in your hallway at your school is also really important, and another way that you can be a connected educator. So I'd like to kind of keep a well-rounded point of view on that. And I also think it's important to remind people, one of the questions for T-Book C was about making time for global connections and being basically on social media as a connected educator. And I think it's something that I like to stress with people, is that a connected educator can be someone who checks in on social media once a week for 30 minutes. You don't have to be on Twitter all day long. You don't have to even be spending all of your mornings and nights and weekends on social media. I actually think that that's not always good. And I think that, it's important just in general to be a well-rounded human being in order to be a healthy, well-rounded educator. That's a post for another day because it's something I'm really passionate about and that I'm still trying to sort of figure out for myself in my own practice, but just in general for the role of education. But that would be kind of my take on T-Book C. And again, here's that question 3 about making time. So, I think it's important to make time. I also think it's important to take time to not be on there. The next question is from the Office of E-Learning at the Indiana Department of Education. Actually has their own chat, and I didn't realize that that's what this chat was when I stumbled upon it. I really love this part right here where they say, you don't need a Twitter account to search the hashtag. You can just look at the resources and the inquiries that your colleagues across the state have shared. I think that's fantastic. I really, really love this. I'm going to be looking more at this website because I like the way they've sort of positioned themselves to be, building this community, but also encouraging people that you don't have to be, signing up for a Twitter account and figuring it all out from day one. You can just search the hashtag and learn, and that can be your PD for the day. So I think that's really neat. The question 4 tonight was, describe one digital worksheet that you could turn into an authentic lesson. So they actually were talking tonight about worksheets. There's a No Worksheet Week, which is coming up. I like to always kind of mention when it comes to worksheets that just because something is a worksheet or just because something is digital and it's online doesn't mean it's not necessarily a worksheet. And I loved the way they were pointing that out tonight. I just think it's really great that the e-learning aspect of their Department of Education is trying to point out, hey, you also don't have to be online all the time. And if what you're doing online is a worksheet, then maybe that's not the best use of your class time. So I'm not necessarily going to answer this question. I think there are a lot of digital worksheets that come to mind that could be brought into authentic lessons, but I just thought that was a great question. The next time that you give your students an assignment in IXL or 10 Marks or Khan Academy or whatever platform you might be using with your kids, maybe think about, is this the time for them to be doing it online, or is there a better way to get this learning, really as something that my kids can internalize? So I thought that it was really interesting the way they were approaching the chat tonight and talking about worksheets and digital worksheets and those kinds of things. The next chat that I want to talk about is Lit Lead. If anybody knows the origin of this chat, I kind of gauged that they were talking about blogging, and from looking at some of the different topics that they've done over the course of the last few weeks, I saw that it's definitely a lot about being a leader and within literacy, but I couldn't find a website or any specific origin. I do think it's really interesting how the people who are guest moderating, it seems like they have different moderators each week, and those people post a preview generally on their own personal blog, but they post a preview about what the next chat is that they're going to be leading, and then they put the questions on their blog post. I thought that was a really interesting way to do it, so I enjoyed finding that. But there are 2 questions that I'm going to lump together and answer. Question 1 was, what are the benefits of having teachers blog? And question 2 was, as a teacher and leader, how do you help other teachers see the value in blogging? This is something that I have been thinking about a lot, and I continue to think about it in different ways. And I'm not going to fully give you my whole big spiel about blogging because it's a spiel and I don't have time for that tonight. So maybe there's another topic for a VEDA video. But essentially, I think that the most important thing, the biggest benefits about blogging is that you're creating time and space for reflection. Similar to what I've been noticing with these vlogs, sometimes I'll think about what I want to talk about. I might even jot down a couple ideas or points that I want to hit. Generally, I don't do that. I'm not that organized. But, I think about, okay, what are sort of those bullet points that I want to make sure to talk about within that topic. But as I start talking, that sort of conversational aspect of it brings me to a new aha that I never would have gotten to otherwise. So I might be thinking about that topic all day long. But by sharing something out loud and having that opportunity to say it verbally, process those things and put it out there, I sort of come to this new realization or this new understanding that I wouldn't have necessarily been able to come across just by thinking about it all day. I think that blogging is very similar to vlogging. It's just a different way of doing it. But that happens to me a lot when I'm writing a blog post. As I'm blogging and writing my ideas out, I start to come across new ideas and things become more clear. And it just really gives me a time to take a step back and see things from a different perspective. So I think, in general, just the reflection aspect and whether you're vlogging or blogging or, even taking the time to have a conversation with someone else, I think that those opportunities for reflection are really, really valuable because they help us to to know where have we come from and where are we going next, and to really kind of process through whatever those things are that we're thinking about. So I'm a big fan of blogging, but I'm also a big fan of doing it when you are inspired to do it, and not sort of forcing the issue. I think that my best blogs come when I just sort of feel the need to share something with somebody. And sometimes my best blogs are things that I've jotted down in my crazy notebook. You can see I have this insane notebook that I keep. And so just, random ideas that I'll jot down, and then it might be months later that I come back to it, and then that becomes the blog post. And it's really helpful to still take time to reflect even several months later, or to revisit those ideas that I was thinking about earlier. So I really think blogging is a fantastic way to reflect. The next chat that I wanted to talk about is G to Great. So this is good to great. Question 3 was, how can we be more proactive before learning to increase the potential that students will be more engaged during learning? The first thing that came to mind when I saw this question was the way that you set students up for success based on how you know them. And this goes back to the same thing I was saying about families, which is that you need to build a relationship. You need to know your kids. You need to understand them. You need to know their learning preferences. You really, really need to also start empowering them to know themselves as well as you need to know them, and hopefully better than you know them, because I was constantly in the classroom looking out for, how do I meet the needs of all of my kiddos? How do I make sure that I'm setting them up to be successful? How am I creating opportunities for not just the middle or the high or the low, but for every single individual student? Sometimes that looks like setting them up successfully to not have issues with their behavior. So, certain kiddos, I would always make sure that they were seating in a certain place in the room. Or if we're going to an assembly, I made sure that, we would use the 3 rows so that I could sit in the middle of the kids rather than 2 rows and being really spread out. Or, just different things that I could do to make sure my kids could be successful. And, making sure that after I give a whole class mini lesson or whole class directions, that I go and check in very, very first with the kiddos who I know are going to need some reinforcement on that, or asking 5 kids to then go and talk to 5 other kids and tell them what the directions are. I could sit here all night and talk about the ways that you can set your kids up to be successful, but I think that it's constantly, you should be looking for those opportunities, and that's a great way to be proactive, so that then during the learning time, the kids know what it is they're supposed to do, they know how to do it, and they feel confident in the things that they're doing so that they can engage in it. If your content is 5 grade levels ahead of one of your kiddos, they're not going to be able to access that, they're not going to be able to be successful, and I can pretty much guarantee they're not going to be engaged. So constantly looking for, where are the times that I'm pushing them? Where are the times that I'm finding that sort of pocket of greatness that I can help them, to feel really confident with that? And where are the places that they need some scaffold so that they can get to that point? So that's how I would be proactive in that way. Another chat was EduGeek chat, and they were talking about reading comprehension strategies, and they were talking a lot about just how do you get kids engaged in reading and excited about reading and practicing their reading. I think that there are 2 things that I always come back to with pretty much anything with reading. One is read aloud. I am a huge fan of read aloud. As some of you may know, I even, now that I'm out of the classroom, do online read alouds for my friends around the world because I miss doing read aloud so much. I think read aloud is so, so important, and I don't think that there's any age that's too old for read aloud. I think high school teachers should be doing some form of read aloud with their students at least part of the year. I think it's really important. The other aspect of, just getting kids excited about books and helping them to grow as readers is just to help them find the books that they love. I think that so many times we say, you should read this, instead of saying, what do you want to read about? If I have a student who says, I hate reading, I'm horrible at it, I don't want to do it, my first question that I always ask them is, what is it that you love? I love race cars, I love baseball, I love dancing. Awesome, now I have an in. I know what they're passionate about. If I can find books to support that passion and get them hooked in reading about the things they love, that's awesome. The second question I always ask is, when was the last time that you remember loving a book? Whether it was a book you read or a book someone read to you. And it can be a picture book, it can be a chapter book, it can be nonfiction, it doesn't matter what kind of book, but when was the last time that you loved the book? And then I start having that conversation with them about, what did you love about it? Why did you love that aspect? Really digging into the elements that they enjoyed about it, because the more we can help kids pick books that they love and then help them to understand, oh, it wasn't just that I like fantasy, I really enjoyed reading about these elements within that fantasy genre, and then they can, start to pick their own books really wisely and be excited about the books they're reading. So I think fostering a love of reading is really just about modeling it and about getting them to find the things that they love. So I know that was very long, and if you made it this far, congratulations. I really hope you were listening to that on 2 times speed. But I appreciate you following along with all of my ramblings and answering these questions tonight, and I look forward to chatting with all of you tomorrow.